Hey, what's happening, everybody? Great to see you. I'm Pragmatic Addict, and this is going to be my review of the new movie Lightyear from Pixar. So, okay. How do I begin with this movie? I'm not gonna say that I was really anticipating this movie, but it was a very daring and kind of strange pick for like Pixar. So I mean, obviously, I grew up with a Toy Story franchise. I'm a big fan of Toy Story. A lot of us out there are. And when they announced that they were going to be doing a Lightyear origin story, this is immediately what I thought.
Location of Zurg's fortress, but there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
Come to me, my prey.
I mean, just such an iconic scene for Toy Story 2. Oh my god, remember that opener? So, I have a lot to talk about with this movie, so without further ado, let's just get right into this. So immediately going into this film, and as far as like how it opens up and reels me in, which it did, it's got a very cinematic and very climatic, like, strong score to it. It's got a very dramatic tone. You can tell that, this film is gonna be amping people up, and you can tell right off the bat that the film knows exactly what it is and how much hype there is going into it. And one thing I'm also gonna note is like, so obviously as far as like necessities, as far as this film goes, that was kind of my biggest concern with the movie. Even initially was like, is this actually necessary? And I will say this, as far as like that goes, the film addresses that right off the bat. So it opens up addressing that, Andy had his favorite toy, Buzz Lightyear, which is based off of his favorite movie. And then the movie states that, and then it goes on to say, this is that movie. So it's right off the bat, it was a really heart-filled opener. It was a very hype opener, and it was a very dramatic and cinematic opener as well. And I was really excited for it. But in saying that, I will say this now. Going forward from that, the movie is not nearly as hype as it seems on the surface. And as the film does, begin, we are obviously introduced to Buzz Lightyear, and immediately there's plenty of callbacks to Buzz Lightyear's, iconic moments, and to the Toy Story franchise as well. But in saying that, this is not the Buzz Lightyear that we know. This is the Buzz Lightyear that the toy was based off of, which means that this is a more humane Buzz Lightyear. He's got, more humane characteristics. And, yes, this character has a lot of hype to build up to. I mean, Buzz Lightyear is one of the most iconic kids characters in movies of all time. And I will say this, they're not really trying to do anything new with that in that sense, or like, replace anything. But in saying that, right off hand, like initial thoughts, they aren't really doing too much justice for this character. Now, I will say this, as a space or sci-fi alien flick, the movie does pretty well with. It does have a lot of thrills. It does have a very beautiful landscape to it. It's got a lot of, space and alien suspense even to it. And, in saying that, like, there were times where I was literally like, that is a direct reference to the movie Alien, which I was really happy about. There's a lot of tense moments. There's a lot of hold your breath moments. Surprisingly, just as a space sci-fi like film, presented from Pixar, I thought it did really well with in that, area. And just as the environment, the atmosphere, again, the landscape of space in this film, it does have that wasteland, very, like unpredictable kind of layout where, with the galaxies, it really feels like you're going through space. They do a lot with that in that sense. Now, as far as like Chris Evans voicing Buzz Lightyear in this film, it never really threw me off. I will say that. That was obviously, something that I was going to keep in mind, but it never really dawned on me that like this wasn't Tim Allen. I mean, obviously if you're, looking for that, you can tell that this is not Tim Allen. But as voicing Buzz Lightyear, it never really threw me off. It just, obviously Buzz Lightyear is, a very eccentric, very animated character. And, this is, again, a humane Buzz. And you can kind of feel that, but it doesn't really take away from what Buzz, felt like, what he sounded like, how he kind of resonated. So that thing I was actually very, reassured of. And as far as like voice acting goes, I thought Keke Palmer as well was great. I mean, I don't really have any nitpicks as far as like the voice acting goes with this film, but Chris Evans with Keke Palmer as Izzy, I thought it was a great pair. I thought they both did really well. Now, one criticism I do have, which I had to address, is that right off the bat, and not even right off the bat, just in the grand scheme of it, this is not going to fully deliver or surprise or, present on expectations of fans, of the, iconic Toy Story 2 opener, or even the, series Star Command for that matter. This is a more slow-driven kind of character-building story more than anything, but in saying that, yes, this is the origin story of the Buzz Lightyear that we know and love, and, there's a lot that they could do with that, and I will say that, while, yes, they do address that, as far as, like, an actual Buzz film, it's never nearly quite as, engaging as, again, Toy Story 2's iconic story that we, have expected, hopefully, possibly with this film, or, the series for that matter, again. And I will say this, the pacing is also a big issue to me. So as we see in the trailers, this film does center on time travel, and for those that don't know the story, which I didn't, even up to this point, it was a very confusing trailer. I was just in here to see fucking Buzz Lightyear fight Zurg. So basically the story is that Buzz Lightyear is a space ranger. He's the most, iconic, most standout space ranger. And while he's on this mission, he actually goes into hyperspeed multiple times throughout the galaxy and ends up, screwing up and actually putting himself, a few years into the future. But here's the thing is that he keeps trying to finish this mission. He's determined to finish it. And so he's trying over and over and over again, and each time he's going more and more into the future. So where this film actually takes place is that what ends up happening is sometime down the road, his colleagues are like, hey, we're shutting down the mission. The program is done. Like, the mission is over. We're not making any progress. And Buzz Lightyear, being as determined as he is, he ends up pretty much escaping into space and is like, I'm gonna finish this mission. And while he's up there, since, he has gone so far into the future, his partner and his best friend that he worked with years ago, he is now recruiting with her granddaughter, who is an up-and-coming rookie for the Space Rangers, and together he and her and this new team are here to finish this mission. So again, in saying that, I was really curious to see how much ground they would actually cover in the sense of, like, all these different timelines and throughout all these different years, and again, as a story and, for like the lore for Buzz Lightyear. And I will say, as a story, it doesn't really connect that in any, actual, like, engaging way. It doesn't really shift to that in a sense where it really builds upon that. It just feels like, for how much, story there should have been and could have been, they made that, like, the least of the matters and of their concerns, and it really shows. And now this is another kind of big issue for me. So Socks the cat, he's this little robot cat that Buzz ends up finding along the way and becomes this kind of companion. So a big issue I have with this movie, and I'm not going to go into this too much because this is a huge issue all in itself, but so as we're introduced to this movie, it is told that, yes, this was Andy's favorite movie that, inspired the toy and made him obsessed with this character. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so obviously you're going to get, the Buzz Lightyear toy of this, Space Ranger, of this iconic space movie, and then Zurg, of course, but you mean to tell me that you didn't make a toy of a robot cat? Like, that's one thing I'm just like, I'm not trying to nitpick too much or go into too much continuity shit, but, like, you would think that Socks the cat would be a character in the Toy Story film if, this was actually the case as far as inspiration toward Andy. So that was a big, kind of like slap in the face toward me. But you can tell, very, very, very clearly that, this cat is just put in this movie to entertain kids, to make it that much more engaging for the kids. And just in the sense of like unnecessary characters, there's a lot of them in this film where, you know, they are just here for like supporting or filler to make the movie more complete. But a lot of them are just, you know, these side characters that are really goofy and cracking these jokes and just trying to, you know, again, like kind of resonate more with kids, where as a whole they're not really that necessary. But, you know, they are a fun addition enough as far as like, you know, humor and light comes to this kind of more dramatic tone of a movie. And yes, there are some surprises in this movie. You know, there's some surprising characters that really kind of shook me at times, where I was like, oh shit, whoa, okay. And, you know, as far as, like, the Buzz Lightyear character goes, you know, with his suit and, like, his abilities and gadgets and stuff, we do see a lot of different ones that we have not yet seen from this character. Just however you look at it, like, as, like, a kid's movie or a kid's space movie or a Toy Story spinoff, however you want to look at it, it never really fully feels like it sticks that kind of a landing. You know, there's a lot of, like, spacey kind of, like, you know, history in this film. There's a lot of mathematical, science-y bullshit that is gonna hurt a lot of kids' heads. And, you know, yes, this is a very kind of like packed film, more or less, in a sense. And while, you know, like within its roots, it does have a lot going for it, maybe, or, you know, could go a lot of different routes. There are a lot of times, more or less, where it can and does come off, you know, pretty, you know, predictable at times. Now, I will say this, as far as Zurg goes, you know, yes, we do see his origins more or less. They're not as touched up on or brought to the surface as, obviously, you know, Buzz Lightyear's, but Zurg is obviously a big part of Buzz Lightyear. And, you know, as far as, like, where his character comes from and goes and the routes it took, I was actually pretty surprised with and pretty, you know, I was fine with. He is very menacing in this film. The, you know, scenes with him and Buzz together on screen whenever that happened was always, you know, fun. And yeah, you know, there is a lot of action in this film. There are a lot of, you know, suspense, tense, you know, action-filled space scenes that I think, you know, even as a space fan or like an action fan, you know, delivered fine for the most part. I guess what it comes down to is just like, as a standalone space film, I think it's fine. But as, like, a Toy Story, like, spin-off or, like, for, you know, fans of the Toy Story franchise, it doesn't really deliver quite, you know, for that kind of demographic. And speaking of demographic, I don't really even know, like, what age group I would, like, you know, point this toward. Like, it is a very slow, very kind of serious and dramatic, you know, intense space film more than anything. It just happens that Buzz Lightyear is in this movie. That's just kind of what it felt to me. Overall, guys, I think at the end of the day, I'm going to have to give this movie a solid 4 out of 10. Again, like, as a space spectacle film, I thought it did not only fine, but it was, you know, visually and, you know, as, like, the atmosphere and, again, like, this landscape, it did really well. There was a lot that you can take away from this film at the end of the day, but just as a Buzz Lightyear film, or like as like a, you know, fans of the Toy Story franchise, which is what it should solely be directed toward more than anything, it doesn't quite hit that mark. And last takeaway, this is just a personal thing. This needs to be a world in Kingdom Hearts 4. I said it. There, I said it. But yes, guys, that is going to do it for my Lightyear review. Again, this wasn't a bad film. I just, you know, there was a lot of worries I had with it. And at the end of the day, a lot of those worries were more or less kind of hand-tossed around. But let me know what you guys thought about Lightyear down below for those who have seen it, as well as my review. Guys, I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for watching this review, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.